as professionals to overcome the call reluctance and the emotional blocks that they're having? I know you have a course, but
Yeah.
in just a
Yeah.
few words,
Yeah, that wasn't going to be my answer. Well, take my course. That's course. Here's the
yeah,
short answer. Just take my course. 1-800
yeah,
call Wally. No. So, great question. My course really it revolves around some pretty, specific activities. There's kind of 5 steps I've broken it down to. The first one is, becoming aware, like becoming globally aware of where it came from. Right.
Mhm.
There's trauma, there's bullying, there's belief systems we created ourselves, and then there's influences from adult figures like parents and leaders in our life, and things, sexual, emotional, physical abuse, bullying, making decisions about who you think you are. For instance, I grew up poor, I could see my clothes were different. I mean, I still remember my lunches being different from the other kids. I still remember today those cowtails, like the cowtail candies, I'm saying, like kids had those
Uh-huh.
all the time. And my mom's like, we can't afford those. And I'm like, okay. So, and as a result of that, I felt different. I felt like I stood out, and I felt like I wasn't as worthy because I grew up in New Hampshire. Kids would go skiing, vacation. Like we never did any of that, so I created this belief system around not being good enough, and it really affected how I treated money, for the first 50 years of my life.
Yeah.
And then really it's just a matter of figuring out, okay, like where does this come from? And I give people a real simple activity. I tell them to take 2 note cards, or if you're a perfectionist, you can take 2 pieces of paper. I don't care. Just get it down, gum wrappers, cocktail napkins, and just very simple question. What is that's causing me to have call reluctance, or what is causing my procrastination, or what is causing my perfectionism, and really just going through and letting your subconscious bring all that back to the surface,
Yeah.
right? We remember everything we've ever tasted, seen, touched, smelled, or heard. Problem is it's stacked like a big sandwich. And so, but our subconscious is going to bring that up. Okay. And so the first thing is to become aware. I mean, you would never go to the doctor and say, hey, I've got a headache. And the doctor would say, okay, lay down, we're going to operate, right? Doctor's gonna be like, okay, is it inside? Is it outside? Is it throbbing? Is, what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
we've got to identify the source. And then really the reason we're doing that is because we need to understand the emotions that come up when that happens. Right. T. Harv Eker calls it TFAR, thoughts, feelings, actions, results.
Hmm.
Triggered, we get a thought, there's an emotion that comes up, and then that emotion leads to an action or an inaction, and then we get a result. But for most of us, because we've gotten so good at it, we go trigger, I'm going to skip right over that emotion. I'm going to go right to action or inaction. And most of the time I get a result I don't want. So
Yeah.
the thing is let's feel that emotion so we can deal with it rather than pushing it down. Okay.
Yeah.
Which comes to the next step, which is basically situational awareness, define, identify, and then mindfulness. So now I have identified what causes these issues. I identify what the emotions feel like. And now every time those emotions come up, I've got to be like, okay, what is that? That's anxiety. Where's that coming from? Okay, well, I realized that my parents fought all the time when I was a kid, and my parents beat me, what I'm saying? And so, not beat me all the time, but we definitely, if there was something nearby you could get hit with, a slipper, a spoon, remote control, whatever. So, and then from there, it's like, okay, I'm just going to let this feeling come up, and then I'm going to become mindful, which is I'm just going to focus on the here and now and focus on my breathing. I like square breathing, right? That's a good strategy. Box breathing, they call it, which is in for a 4 count, hold for a 4 count, out for a 4 count, hold for a 4 count, and that regulates your body, and
Hmm.
that gets you out of fight or flight and back into rest and digest. And then, you just focus on being mindful, and eventually that feeling will pass. The good thing is that when you do that long enough, through the miracle of neuroplasticity, you can actually train your brain to do the work for you and not even let that stuff disrupt you. So it's pretty cool. Step 3 is to rewire your brain, right? We've been saying crappy stuff to ourselves our whole life, right? We've been not believing in ourselves. We've got all these things that were programmed or coded, as Dr. Don Wood would say, that are wrong, that we've been reinforcing. And now we're an adult and we have this negative, bad coding. So got to recode. We've got to rewire. I'm a big fan of Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning. So, which is important. And step 4 is, really identifying what we want in life. Unfortunately, Paul, what happens is we get so caught up in running from pain, running from what we're looking for, that we can't look forward to something. And so
Yeah.
most of us really don't spend a lot of time thinking what we want, either because we're too busy focused on the pain and running away, or we just don't believe that the future is possible. So we really spend time thinking about that, And then the last thing, step 5, is really let's focus on your why. People have a lot of trouble with their why because of that, for that same reason, because they're so focused on just not feeling pain or trying to avoid the pain, and there's so much blockage in there from all this crap that's collected over the last several years, whatever it is. And so it's not giving them the power, the belief system, to really figure out what their why is.
Yeah.
And so, and then by going through that process, you can clean all that up and start, doing what you need to do on a day over day, week over week, month over month basis, and you just don't think about it.
Yeah, I talk about whys all the time, and success, and what the meaning of success is to people, because that meaning is different. And so when the meaning is different, the reason for that level of success is going to be unique to yourself. And you have to dig deeper to get a good understanding of, well, why is it that you want that? What's driving you? And it's that desire that, it's like that burning desire, that is going to create the passion, make you do what you need to do to get that, achieve that success. And I think that that's so important. But it all starts up here. And as you mentioned, the rewiring, I think people don't understand how to rewire themselves. And it does take a little bit of work and some effort, but that it can be done. You can change the way that you're thinking.
It's interesting. I mean, we're using the same strategy that got us here today is the same strategy you're going to use to rewire your brain. Right. It is, because it's just a matter of being intentional about what goes in and what gets out. The other thing is, your brain thinks it's in charge because we've let it be in charge, but it's really not in charge. We're in charge. And that's why we've got to go ahead and go through the process of rewiring our brain and forcing our brain to realize that, hey, all this negative programming and coding you have is not the way it's supposed to be. So we're going to change that. And your brain's going to fight you. You know what I'm saying? It takes a little while. And most people don't give it the time. But if you were to work on your mindfulness pretty consistently, it's going to take a couple of weeks for it really to cement, at least 7-8 days for you to start noticing a difference. So you've got a lot of people, it's a 30, 40, 50-year ball of yarn. They're unraveling. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, I'm 64, and I actually started working on myself seriously about 40, like right around the time I got into real estate. And it's a continuous effort. I mean, I haven't stopped since I started. It's like I'm ever changing and just constantly growing with the changes around me. Because if we don't change and adapt to those changes, we're just gonna be left behind. So
I love Zig Ziglar said this. I love it. He says, working on yourself and working on your motivation. He says, it's like bathing. We recommend you do it every day.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it makes all the difference in the world, because it's just those incremental steps that are going to get you where you want to be. And sometimes, it's like we might have that goal where we want to be, but sometimes life throws some other things at you that could end up in a whole nother place you didn't expect, but is much better than where you were going in the first place.
Yeah.
Because you just did all the right things day in and day out that kind of picked up the pieces, and the universe just ended up delivering you something much better.
Right. Rolling Stones, you can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. So
absolutely. Yeah. Firm believer. Yeah.
I think it just aged both of us on that one. So that's good.
So can you share a success story of how your coaching has significantly impacted a real estate agent's career?
Yeah. I mean, I've had the good fortune of working with some really, really good agents across the country. Jeff Cook, Brett Jennings, Chris Waters, and I've learned a lot from them too. But, I work with those folks, a lot of them, kind of in the early stages of their career through the Great Recession, and really help them build a solid foundation to get to where they were, wanting to be. And I helped some of those folks make their first $1 million in real estate. So it was pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, I mean, it's just, and I learned a lot from my mentor, learned a lot from, the guys over at NAEA when I worked with them, Jay and Mike. We talked about that. It's awesome when you can talk to somebody and help them get a foundation put in place in their business, and, help them track and help them build an organization, and where they then take it and run with it and build it, what I'm saying, and turn it into something amazing and fantastic.
Yeah.
But I've definitely, from my perspective, what I've done for a lot of folks is really help them just get all their stuff lined up, and then help them make really good decisions on a day over day, week over week, month over month basis about how to build their business, who to hire, when to hire, how much money to spend on something, tracking your budget, tracking your numbers, and making sure that you're doing the daily activities that move the needle, one of which is prospecting.